Mary's currently,
So Mary's made in Paradise. He's in the
We're going to be cognizant of everybody's time, only because we just don't have a ton of it. We'll run a little bit of an hour, we'll go into a council meeting, and then we're going to do some proclamations for some folks. So after the council meeting, we'll go right into a little reception.
yes, sir.
Some folks. So we'll try to stay on task as best we can.
But if you will, Mayor, so your work session commences at 5:30, but the planning and zoning board will have to convene their meeting, so we'll give them a moment.
Oh, by all means, go ahead.
And we do not have a chairperson or vice chairperson present. Robert Rules of Order then indicates that the secretary shall call the meeting to order. And so I'm calling the meeting to order. Also at this time, I'm going to do the roll call, starting with Aaron Malden.
Here.
Thank you. Diane McDonald.
Present.
Tamara Patrick, Chair. Claire Van. We do have a quorum. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. I'm not sure how everyone did things when I wasn't here. I'm just trying to remember what we did while I was, and we can change anything as we would like. But occasionally, in the past, the number of boards that we have is relatively small, but we like to have open communication with our boards as well as the city council. I'm not a big fan of this room for this type of discussion. Normally, I would like to have a boardroom based on COVID and things like that. We got to stay a certain distance apart. I don't like sitting up here. I like to be able to sit and have a real conversation. It makes it easier. Unfortunately, today is just we'll survive it. But you know, in this particular case, the participation is all equal. No one really holds any one spot over another. With the main goal of basically saying we have opportunities in the city, and we've got some economic development people that we've now hired, some marketing people that we've now hired, and we've met with some builders. We haven't had new subdivisions now in 10 years plus. We've got some options that you've already seen a little bit where maybe somebody will repurpose some of the existing commercial spaces. Our little business community, if you will, has a DMO has now met for the first time, and I think we had a group of 25 businesses, which is pretty nice at our first series of meetings. So the groundwork is being laid with just the basics. And then from here, we want to take a series of tours. Now let's just talk specifically about planning and zoning for just a minute. Normally, if you don't have anything going on, then you just simply don't have a meeting. What we'd like to do is Val and some others, Sylvia and some others, we want to start taking you on some tours. And taking you on some tours of places that have been built in the last 10 years that look pretty cool. Maybe they're for Morrow, maybe they're not. Right? But those are the type of projects that we want to bring in. And to be honest, your zoning code at this particular point it isn't really conducive to all of those. And some of what it is conducive to, you don't really want. So part of it's a protection measure to make sure that bright minds have had a chance to kind of look at it. Some of it is to open the door a little bit to make sure that what is modern and new, that we welcome as best we can. And once we kind of know what it is we like, it would not be very complicated for us to spend a little time to figure out who built it, kind of what their costs are with the government. We kind of know what those are. We could reach out to other governments and we could get their zoning code. We know who built it. We know what price they're building on that and things like that. So that's kind of the start, is to say, as we move forward, we want you to be engaged. Right? We want you to be engaged at a level where you're a PE, you've got all kinds of certain experience. But let's say we talked about a project in Decatur down there from the MARTA station that's down there. There's a couple of really cool projects down there. Is it something you'd like to see or not? How are they parking? How are they not? And things like that. So that being said, we'll just simply open the floor, and I'll just go around, and we'll ask everybody to start with, and just kind of what your thoughts are, what you'd like to see, going forward. Give us some type of goals over the next year. And I'm assuming, well, I know I'm on public record, and I know that Marty or Val is going to take some notes, and then we'll give us that, some type of synopsis, and that gives us some marching orders going forward. So I'll start with lady to my right, Ms. Renee Knight. Tell us what you think.
I think it would be a great opportunity with the onset of, I guess, coming together of this iteration of the council, planning and zoning board, to have some exercises that if they are tours or if they are training or conversations, guided conversations, I think it would be a good place to kind of set as a foundation for understanding moving forward. I think that would be a good idea during the tour. I would like to attend the tour as well.
Yeah, this should be open to anybody who wants to attend.
I think that
If we have to rent a bus, we'll go.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem.
I think that would be a good exercise to kind of get everyone speaking the same language. That's all I got.
Mr. Paul?
Well, I would think the idea of kind of having open meetings is a real good idea. Sometimes groups try to put certain people in categories, and you can't discuss anything except what's in your category, which doesn't work too well. So it needs to be wide open, I think, which I think is what you're saying.
Because at this point, I'm fairly comfortable there's some things coming our way. Some of it sounds really good, and some of it scares me. I don't think some of it's going to be as positive in terms of the quality of what we're looking for. I want to be ahead of it. If it's great, let's accept it. If it's not, you're my first line of defense, right? You're going to get hit with it first. We got to kind of know, what your thoughts are. Ms. Claire?
For now, try to get all the information.
Sweet. That's all good. Ms. Dorman?
Yes, good evening. I apologize for being tardy. I agree with Mr. Malden that we do need a forum where everyone can be in the same place and on the same page, so that information that's being presented will have a starting point, and everybody will know what their starting point is, and we can work, in our each boards or whatever from there. But at least, information coming in should, I think, everyone should at least be on the same page.
A point of order, let's make sure we ask the city attorney if I've got, say, 6 individuals on a bus, 3 from each board, how do we solve that?
So I can tell you. So whenever any board has a quorum, it has to be advertised, but you do not have an obligation to have seating for everyone that shows up. I mean, obviously, if we, say, rented a bus and you had seats and people wanted to attend, then you were okay with that. But somebody could caravan, they have to know where you are and the route you're taking, but you are not obligated to make accommodations for them.
So
So we would advertise it as a roaming meeting.
But whatever we would drive would have to have enough flexibility. I mean, obviously, we're not taking, a Greyhound bus into a subdivision setting, something a little small, like they do, the airport shuttles would be a good example, right?
So again, you can accommodate how you wish, but you're not obligated to make accommodations for everyone to have a seat except the quorum.
So that's the technical version, but I'd still like to have some room for other people.
And I just told you those.
So will there be meetings or whatever? Nothing like that,
No,
since there is a quorum?
Well, technically, it is a meeting if you have a quorum. So if we just knew in advance who was coming, we just simply advertise it. And we make the room available that we need. But we realize short term we have a problem, just simply because even if we had extra space, we'd probably want to use the extra space to keep everybody safe. Fair?
And I think what I meant was that will there be minutes taken?
Oh,
Since-
yes, and
Okay.
anytime a quorum gathers, minutes should be taken.
But you're, not a general conversation though, right?
Well, you don't have to do verbatim, all you're saying is there was a general conversation.
Yeah, we
And
don't-
perhaps the
Okay.
thing we do is we could say where we're going, anybody who wants to follow us quite literally in a car, and then you convene at the end and have a discussion about what you just saw, something like that. So that nobody feels like they're left out.
Now, we want to be as inclusive as possible. How you doing, Ms. McDonald?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
You want to go for a ride?
Oh, shoot, ya. Let's go to the beach.
Ms. Towner?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, no, I think that tours are a great idea. I think we're all sort of, busy these days, and although I get out and I run to Non-Day Moon and those sorts of things, I don't really take a moment to stop and look around and absorb what's around me. So I think an organized tour would be a great idea, because then I'm focused and focused on the task at hand, what's around me, and it's sort of a collaboration of ideas that we can all sit in the same space and exchange those ideas on ways to improve. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Sweet. Mr. Parker?
Good evening, everybody, and it's a good thing to have everybody to be engaged as a group again. So we can move forward, push the city move forward. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Van? What's it?
Keep out of there.
She left the meeting. That's what happens. See, you run. Okay. So, areas of risk start with commercial. Obviously, we've got a high number of vacancies. So when you deal with commercial, you end up with a combination of conditional uses, right? Somebody wants to use something maybe in a format we like or don't like. Somebody coming in and maybe subdividing properties. So let's get into a couple of those. So the conditional use is something you have control over, right? So all of your decisions are theoretically made by your comprehensive plan. To be legally enforceable, you have to follow your comprehensive plan. Now your mind gets to kind of tell you what that means, right? But if somebody's ever asking you, you know that you have to follow your comprehensive plan. That's why it exists, okay? So there's a 10-year comprehensive plan, and then there's a 5-year update, and those are required by state law. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing is whenever you have somebody that's coming in front of you, you can't have a preconceived answer before they've had a discussion. If they're building junk you just can't stand, you can't just sit there and go, I hate you guys, I'm sorry, we're not gonna give you that. You have to hear them out, like a jury, if you will. But you're entitled to asking strong questions, just like a senator. So a conditional use is just that. Somebody's asking for something they're not entitled to under your zoning code. And they're willing to trade. So what are they willing to trade that works to your benefit, your city's benefit? And can you get something out of that conditional use? Fair? So you've seen a couple of those recently. So that kind of speaks for itself, but that's strong. You have that one, you can do something with. One that might not be quite so strong would be, let's say, general business zone, which we know we have throughout the whole city. And I want to build something we can build.
A bank.
Well, the bank's a nice business. I'm thinking of something you don't want, but would fall within your zoning code.
A lot of event centers or more daycare.
Well, let's just say, imagine whatever it is that you don't want, right? We know your zoning code is broad, so as long as it fit within the general business classification, and let's just say one more hair salon, for example, right? It's not that hair salons are bad, it's just that you have a gazillion of them. So the theory is, why would you build me a new one when I could go over and use an old one? Well, the old one, somebody owns that business, somebody that's not us, and that person is charging a certain amount of rent, where you could put your own salon in your own building and do it. That's why that happens. So you hear that common question, why should we build a new Dollar General when we've got 10 already? your zoning classification doesn't prevent that. There's almost nothing you can do to stop it. All right, so that's where you want to have enough demand in your area so that there's a better use naturally than the dollar store. Okay? So that's a common question. Why build a new building when we got all the vacant old buildings? And there's nothing you can do about that. Okay? But I want some input as to what you think about that. Ms. Renee?
I think it would be phenomenal if we had the opportunity to transform use of our existing vacant spaces, commercial vacant spaces. And this may not be exactly what you're asking, but it's my thought. In my mind, I kind of envision it would be great if we had the opportunity to attract an industry possibly to become a hub of some sort that would kind of kill two birds with one stone, creating opportunities for jobs, becoming like a little hub of that sector of industry or business. We have the location, optimal location right off of an interstate. We've got thousands of square feet of vacant space that could accommodate possibly some type of small industry. That's always kind of been my thought process. I know in my mind, Atlanta has, a tech village, there's a lot of, Clayton County is known for warehousing and distribution centers, but I would love for us to be a small hub of an industry type that has good paying jobs, right down the street from Clayton State, maybe there's an opportunity, maybe there's forecasting information that's available with regard to certain industries that we might be attractive to based on the thousands of square feet of vacant space that we have. That's kind of been one of the thoughts that I've had. That's where my mind goes with the commercial space. I would like for us to be an attractive hub for some type of industry where we can kill two birds with one stone. Have that space used, but also create jobs. That's my thought.
Mr. Martin?
Well, I think competition and supply and demand, using your Dollar Tree example, if somebody opens up a new Dollar Tree, if the community can't support that many Dollar Trees, then somebody's going out of business. And, it's just the economy works that way. And you have some businesses that you wouldn't want in your city, like an adult bookstore, and it's an entirely different issue. So we got to figure out how to keep those out.
Ms. Clay?
Well, I think entertainment is one of the hubs that could increase, because after all, we're really a stone throw away from the airport, and it's something that is so congested. We wanted to maintain small town atmosphere, but at the same time, we want to generate, financial to the city. So I think, like, say, the movie theater, AMC, that's a whole space that's empty beside LA Fitness Center. We can have something, entertainment for family oriented, say, miniature golf or some type that people can just go from one place to the next without traveling around. Like Jonesboro, they have that little Main Street. It is cute to have an art gallery and all that. We don't have any of that. We just like all sporadic, all out. And I think something has to do with entertainment and something change all the time. That would be best for the city as well.
If I might make a comment to piggyback on what you said, I think the benefit that we have as a city is, residential is concentrated on one side, and our commercial is concentrated on another. So, whether it's being a small business hub, an incubator hub, or an industry type hub, or an entertainment hub, all of that concentrated commercial space wouldn't necessarily impede on residential access and flow, because we kind of got those two sides of town working.
And just a point of information, we've got Ms. Rana, she's the Urban Redevelopment Authority Chairman, sitting in the back. So, Ms. Dorothy.
Yeah, I would like to,
And Ms. Hargis, who's also on that board as well.
the point that Aaron was making, I think, and you also made the statement that there's nothing that we can do about certain businesses. What about saturation, I mean, in a city?
It doesn't matter.
Well, I know I've lived in places where if we have 10 of these already, we don't need 10 more. So why can't we?
Going back to Mr. Mullen from a standpoint of,
Right.
you don't have a legislative right in that case.
So that's a Georgia law?
That's gonna probably be the constitutional law at some point.
Well,
but-
no, I've lived in cities where
Well,
it's
you-
regulated.
Certain
Because-
places have more control, especially if you own it.
Mhm.
If you own it, you've got maximum control. Without an ownership interest in it, or some type of conditional use where you can control it to some degree, it's not so much.
Well, to your point, dollar stores.
Well, we know the dollar store,
I
if I
mean-
took the name off of it and I called it John's, and
Well-
sold everything for $1,
But,
it's
I
still the
mean,
same thing.
We're not, are we open for business for Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar?
Well,
Are we still open for business, really?
Well, we seem to have a lot of it, but that's part of pushing for a higher demand.
Right, exactly,
And-
so-
And your demand comes from bringing more people into your city. It's a lot easier to drive around now than it used to be, right? That's because our traffic counts are low. It's not just a COVID issue.
So wouldn't that mean that, we speak with our business owners or our property owners to ask, if we can, certain things, don't bring us any more of these, please.
Well,
We
you
can
hope your
work with our,
rent
we
is
can
high
work with our
enough
property owners,
to
right?
avoid them. But
Yeah.
right now, your rents, traditional market rate might be $18 a foot. You're at $6.
Yeah.
Now your Mount Zion quarter might be a little higher than that,
Right.
maybe 18, but your older stuff is
Yeah.
cheap. I would say that Marshall Shopping Center, I'm not saying they're taking everything, but I think they'd take anything, and that's a problem.
And sometimes it's hard to, reintroduce that area once,
It is, but let's throw one more in there. And so let's say we own the shopping center,
right,
it's ours.
right,
We
right.
have to pay taxes, or they're gonna take it back. We have to pay insurance, or the bank's gonna charge us the insurance anyway. Then we have that thing called maintenance, right, where we maintain the roof, we maintain the parking lot, and we keep it clean in the landscaping, code enforcement. You ever notice that last one? That there's no law on that, right? It's the code enforcement officer. But the other ones, you're gonna pay the tax first. You're gonna pay the insurance right behind that. You're gonna do as minimum as you possibly can on maintenance. So let's say we have a 100,000 square foot shopping center, and 50% of it is now vacant. That means that other 50% is paying a normal rate in their CAM fee, right? But that means the property owner is now making up the other 50% of the taxes, the other 50% of the insurance, and he's probably doing no maintenance whatsoever because he can't afford it, or he's gonna lose the shopping center. Right? So it's one of those, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. As those shopping centers become more vacant, we're now having to do more and more code enforcement, but that code enforcement's really strong, and the guy's doing the absolute minimum he can because he can't afford to pull it off. The vacancies are too great. It costs 1.5 times the amount of money to renovate a space than it does to build it the first time. Well, the space is already here, so we're in the 1.5 renovation category, whether we like it or not. That's complicated. People come in, and let's say Mr. Malden wants to take your space, and it's gonna cost $300,000 to renovate it the way he would like to present it. He wants something nice, right? That's gonna cost money. He's gonna renovate it, sign anywhere from a 5 to 10-year lease. He gets to amortize that over the life of the lease. So I recommend a 5-year lease with a 5-year option, Mr. Malden. Keep it the way it is. But he's sitting there going, well, why am I investing $300,000 in Northeast Shopping Center? Because she's still charging me rent. So you're only gonna get like 3 months off or 6 months off. So you don't see an aligned interest to a lot of what's going on. That's why this stuff is aging in place. The big companies, the national REITs, they're very debt driven. So, and a true REIT, RET, Real Estate Investment Trust, they transfer the money not to you as a corporation, they transfer the money to you as an individual, so you get taxed on an individual rate. Their debt to equity ratio is usually 97% debt. That's a real number, even on the big ones, right? So where's the extra money coming from for those companies to reinvest that $300,000? Their business model doesn't even support it, which is why for years we've had that problem. So we've got very, very big companies who own properties. You notice they don't live here, right? Not even close, not even from the state in most cases. So how do you convince the local manager to reinvest? That's not their decision. It's not even close to their decision. There's an executive VP somewhere, and he's got 15 shopping centers that look just like yours, and he's picking the one that gets him the highest return on his investment, right? Probably not Morrow. So, admire the idea. Very difficult to pull off. You can try, but your legal team would probably give you an opinion that you're not going to be very successful. Right? I'm not saying you shouldn't try. Don't get me wrong.
Right, because-
The world of bluff works pretty well. You know, Mom bluffs a lot, right? She hollers at you, she threatens to spank you, but maybe not. So somewhere, Ms. McDonald.
If, we're talking about business,
In this case, yes.
could
Yes.
you repeat that?
From a business standpoint, what we're looking at is new development versus using existing development, some of the tales that come from that. You're gonna hear that in your audience, right? Where somebody's gonna say, why build a new one when we've got all this vacant space? And then the very fact of doing some type of renovation on an existing space and the cost that goes associated with it. It's just voicing your opinion as to what you see.
My opinion is, and I have never seen an empty parking lot at a Costco. The newer Costco's, the big ones. If you could get one in this area and put that sign up where people could see it, it'd be untold tax money, I think, for the city.
We can't release the numbers, but I would say our business Costco,
It's doing great.
historic numbers, even in Cody. I'm not talking about just a little bit. I'm talking really, really nice. I can say that, I'm pretty sure. So,
It's the concept switching, not that you don't see the traffic a whole lot, but they sell a whole lot of wholesale, so making
Well,
less.
I like to go to the big ones. Even the one over there around Peachtree City, to me, is small. But you go a little bit north of Atlanta, around Kennesaw, that development up there is awesome.
agreed.
I will go up there. A lot of my friends do. I've never seen an empty parking lot, never,
I agree. I mean, all of them.
at the big one.
Cumberland's is good.
Cumberland's is okay. I still go north.
Brooklyn was good too.
I go around Kennesaw.
And it's okay to want what everybody else has got, or somebody else has, and strive to achieve, to attain it here, because we're gonna have
It's
some
just,
challenges.
I like, they've never disappointed me as a customer. You know, and they have some, their guarantees on the stuff they sell are awesome. They have a good reputation. I know the business store does great. I go over there too. But, I hear they're gonna put one down around Jodico Road.
That wouldn't surprise me. They're building
But
that
that's
pretty
still,
strong.
you could catch them here if you put them out there where somebody knew it was sitting here.
Are there examples, or does the county already have some layer of incentive for redevelopment? Something that's specific to I mean, maybe even a mindset that we can develop as a city because we know what we have that's standing as inventory. Incentives for rehabbing and redeveloping. I mean, that may be something that we can look into, something that we can distinctly offer as a city, unique to Clayton County and any other municipality, or even, you know, the county authority, I guess.
And we'll be doing a similar meeting with the URA, I think, 2 weeks from now, maybe. You're welcome to attend that, and that's where we'll get into a little bit more of discussion items like that. We're not a wealthy city, and, you know, most of the time, retail is not considered something your development authorities get into. You know, they go for jobs. In other words, I bring you an LG plant and a manufacturing facility that's gonna bring me 1,000 jobs. And the development authority will basically underwrite the project from a financing standpoint and get a lower interest rate and things like that. Or you own the land and things like that. But most of that is usually related to industrial projects, and mostly well outside of Metro Atlanta, where they're basically bringing jobs up to their area because that money's going to stay there.
Maybe that's our opportunity.
It may be, but it's retail's harder.
Well, and I guess I should clarify. Maybe that's our opportunity with regard to forecasted industries growth, job growth. You know, something that we can pick and target. Maybe some multiple facets. Create a package of incentives to specifically speak to our standing inventory of, you know, vacant space, so that we do become more attractive, even if the rehab costs or the, you know, redevelopment costs may be, as you have mentioned before, more than building brand new, but still figuring out a way to kind of hit some layer of incentive to attract something different, even beyond retail.
Agreed. The amount of money you receive from a retail project versus an industrial project is small. That's the hard part. We had a restaurant, for an example, where it was kind of like, what can you do for me? And just do the math like it's in your own pocketbook for just a minute. The maximum amount that restaurant's gonna pay us is about $2,000 a year. His grease trap is gonna cost him $27,000. If you gave him every nickel that he ever gave you for 10 years, you wouldn't cover the grease trap alone. Complicated, right? That's why they don't do a lot of it for that. The county and the school board are the ones who really drive the greatest property tax value. They're gonna get the 20 mils and things like that. Well, you're getting a small section. Now, we're not alone in this. There are some cities that do facade grants and things like that where they can make it look better. In some cases, it's not so much the exterior that's bothering us, it's the junk they put on the inside that's making us mad. But all of that has to be on the table somehow. You know, you've got to move the ball until it starts to move a little bit on its own. And you got to fish with more than one pole, because you don't know what's biting today, and you don't know what bait's working. Right? A while ago, there was some incentives from the federal government to be able to pull manufacturing jobs out of other countries and bring them home. So that was to say, don't build it in Bangladesh, for an example, build it in Morrow, Georgia. And they gave you some federal incentives per section. The state of Georgia gives you job tax credits of, I think, 4,300, something like that, because we're a tier 3 county or something. Tier one. And the bottom line is, you know, I can give you real tax credits for every job that you produce. So there are some things that we do have. Generally, they're not so much retail really. But yes, I think when you go through the training, and Ms. Hargis, when you go through the training, you're going to see that, you know, they have a box full of tools. You have to kind of look at which one works for your area. Unfortunately, most of those are not related to retail. Doesn't mean we can't create a new one. You know, in this case, we don't really have a lot of options. Right? We're a retail area, small office, mostly retail. We've got to do something. You know, your tax base took a hit, and not a small one, and that affected everything. It affects what you can pay the guys in the back to do their job, right? You can't expect people to, you know, stay here 20 years and make $50,000 a year. That's a joke. You know, it's just not going to happen. You know, we're lucky today, but we still have a chance. We're not toast yet. You know, but keep doing what we're doing. you won't have to worry about it, you know? And that's a problem, you know, when you can't hire talent, just like in your business, then what do you get? You get rookies, right? I mean, rookies are nice, but you can't have all rookies. It doesn't work. So that's how our business model works. So you're not only a lifeline, but you're totally gonna help determine how much money the city makes. And things like that. But I respect the answer, because it's gotta be an answer. Ms. Tamara?
Yeah. And so, John, I'm gonna try to answer this, but some of the feedback that I'm hearing, I'm not sure is answering the question you asked, so I'm just gonna kind of like, yeah. So I think as far as, you know, just the existing building versus new, that would probably just depend upon the client. And, you know, I'm a little bit out of my lane on this, but, you know, is it someone that wants a new facility? Is it an industry that doesn't really care if they, you know, like film industry, they don't really care what it looks like around. You know, they just want to get in there, build a set. It can look terrible on the outside because, you know, inside they can create their movie magic. So I think I'm just sort of trying to get that question answered. But also I just sort of wanted to say, so I've heard over the years, you know, I've heard a lot of feedback about we need to all get on the same page, which we absolutely do, because I often hear, you know, it's very different. You know, I live here, I think we all live here. And then I'm also on the other side, you know, this is, you know, the professional part of this. And I often hear many of us say that, you know, we want more restaurants, we want more of this, we want more of that, but we don't want any more traffic. You know, you can't have it. You've got to figure out, take a really hard look at things. That what do you want? If you don't want traffic, then I don't want to hear you tell me you want economic development, because that inherently brings, that's the point of this exercise. So I think all of us in this room have been doing this for a very long time, and I think we are the best advocates to talk to the other members of our community to get that message across, because I think we often get, you know, yes, it would be great to have sleepy town, that you're just, you know, you feel comfortable and there's never a car in sight, but then I don't want to hear anyone say that, you know, there's nothing to do, because you just can't have both. You just, you know, you can have a little bit, you know, there might be a happy medium, but you absolutely have to expect with that sort of growth that these things are going to happen. And I think until we all accept that and start to communicate that to our community members, it's going to be really difficult to move forward. You know, John, I know you, Sylvia, Marty, and others in this room, you know, it's a very difficult job when, you know, it's like, oh, we want white tablecloth restaurants when we couldn't even maintain a Caribou Coffee here. Because you're not going to pay $5 for a cup of coffee, then don't tell me that you want a white tablecloth restaurant. You know, we just need to sort of face that reality. You know, Sam's does really well here. Costco's a little bit of a different client. We had a Costco, we had a retail Costco. You know, it didn't do as well with the public because I think everyone was going to Sam's. You know, it's like you're either a Sam's person or a Costco person, and I'm 100% Costco. And like this, my fellow community member, I will go to the north side to get some of their prepared foods and things like that. Yeah, it would be great to have that here, but I can't sustain that. I mean, I can go every day and buy a rotisserie chicken, and that's not going to make Costco allow them to stay in business. So I think in order to help our city leadership, you know, I think it's just a really good idea for us to figure out what it is we want, and really not, complain is a strong word, but maybe not complain, you know, to the leadership that this is not here, if you're not willing to pay $100 to go out to eat, you know, at a fine restaurant. So yeah. Sorry, I got a little off of your question, but I think until we recognize those things about ourselves and what we really want, it's almost impossible to move forward because we can't decide what we want to be. We've got to determine what we want to be first. So.
Sweet. I like the answer. Mr. Clark?
Yeah, about existing versus new. construction and those kind of things. I think we should try the best to use our advantage location, right off the highway near by the airport, to fulfill all our vacant space the best we could. And also take whoever want to build new construction here. On the other hand, we shouldn't just do one thing and refuse the other.
Oh, no, it's
Yeah.
all hands on deck. We're
Yeah.
gonna run them both. Ms. Tran?
New versus build, the existing building, we cannot afford to much. So, and we have to take what we have to take. Meanwhile, we don't want to grow into the wrong path either. So I would say, first of all, let's have look and check to make sure what inventory what we have, what kind of property do we own, what is owned by private sector, and for what could we do with the property what we own. For the properties owned by private sector, you said most of the legal space owned by the owner in a different state. So our job is what can we do to put the connection between the investor and the property owner to attract them to come to Morrow. But first of all, we need to understand what we have. And build new or having existing, that is something that we have to work case by case. Depends on what it is. We don't set it solid, say we're not allowed to have any new buildings, or we say that you have to use our existing. Both of them have advantages and disadvantages, so though we have to work case by case. But first of all, we need to understand and know what do we have, what is our potential, and our econ, our director, which is experience, expertise, could help us with that.
And we have one now, as you met him, and we have a marketing lady as well. She's not here.
You talking about Karina?
Yes.
Well, she's outside getting.
Okay, no, it's just important for somebody to know her if you see her in the hall or something like that, and because there's an event later, so it makes sense. You have to have a warm body who answers the phone. And I'll give you an example. We took a lady on a tour for a very small coffee shop. Okay? Whether we attain that coffee shop or not is irrelevant, but through that relationship, we met with another player today who might be able to put 35,000 square feet in play. A little unique, and it might be something we can do on our own property. The particular owner will be here on Friday, and we'll have a lot better discussion. This time it was just the broker, as I said. If we could do it, and if you could do it on property that you even own, this would be something that would be unique. Now, would it make everybody in the community happy? Maybe not. Would it make a bunch of people happy? Probably. So it's a win if we can pull it off. But those are the type of things. That's your start and building. The next thing I want to look at, and I think we got a little time, is that's your big question. So we have big properties. Some they're just going to be in the same ownership hands 20 years from now, and there's not going to be a lot of changes. Others, and let's use the Marshall Shopping Center. And I'm not saying I've talked to the owner of the Marshall Shopping Center. I did years ago, but this conversation, if he listens to it on tape, will be the first time he heard it too. So you buy an old shopping center that's basically lost all of its players in kind of a rougher section of Mount Zion, and it's not feeling the love. Right across the street, there's been 2 restaurants over there for a long time. The old Circuit City building now just became a furniture store, correct? And then you still have the Piccadilly that's been vacant for a while. If that was right here on 54 Highway, those restaurants would be full. Somebody would have picked them up, even if it was somebody you didn't want to eat at, they would be full. So in that one section, it's not doing so well. So then you look at the shopping center across the street, it's pretty much vacant. So let's look at Marshalls, let's take that as an example. We know there are several people who have had an interest in that space. It's a big space, it's like 35,000 square feet. If somebody's gonna do something nice in it, and you all have been inside Marshalls, right, traditional white box, big old open space. But let's say you weren't gonna do retail, you were gonna do something nice, whatever your version of nice is gonna be, right? That's probably gonna cost you a couple $1 million to build that space out the way you want it. One more time, am I gonna, improve Dorothy's space with my couple $1 million? It's a good question. There are two properties that were subdivided long before my time. And y'all familiar with that, the Morrow Shopping Center up there? Right? Remember when Becky Vaughn's used to be up there? And then there was a barber shop, and I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, but they were up there for, 20 years, long time. In that shopping center, Abner Moore and his partner owned the vast majority of it, but somewhere or another, this city years ago subdivided two spaces, one for Becky Vaughn and one for the barber shop. Now because that was before my time, I don't know how it happened. Did they build the whole thing at one time? Usually that's not how it happened, right? They built half of it, and then eventually they built another half. So maybe those two were added on, and then they added on the other parts later. It's a good question, I don't know. But I do know that on the tax digest, that me and you could go in there if it was for sale, and we could go buy it. And neither one of them, Becky Vaughn's shop looked pretty good, but the barber shop was, 1,200 square box, right? Nothing great about it. And they sold roughly 15 years ago, give or take, like 200 grand a space. Now, if you took that for 1,200 square feet and somebody bought a portion of a shopping center, you could subdivide the shopping center and sell the pieces for greater than you could buy the shopping center. Qua might not want to go over and invest in a small retail space that he's just got to rent, but Qua might go over there and buy a space and put his own building in it. In other words, I'm a realtor, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to put my space in there. I'm an insurance company, I'm going to put my office in there. I'm a doctor, I'm going to put my space in there. You'd make that kind of investment because you own your building and you own your business. And you could sell them both, right? I can sell the business and the building, or I could sell just the business, or I can sell just the building. Now you suddenly are starting to come up with ways to unlock value. It's a proven method. It's been done before, but that was probably 40 years ago for whatever reason. And I don't know the time period where it's been done since. Obviously, there would be common areas that you still have to maintain. But the irony is we broke up big stuff. Remember when Stan Thomas owned everything on Mount Zion? Literally, everything on Mount Zion. That side of Mount Zion, anyway. Then he sold off like half one side. Now, U.S. Properties owns a chunk, right? Namde Moon bought their building. Now, when we think something that big, it seems pretty logical. When we think something, say, smaller, like Marshalls, it almost begins to think, well, I don't know if we should do that or not, right? So that would be something that I think we should consider. Maybe not everything, but when you start to look at what does this community have the ability to do, it is very hard, and I won't mention the space, but I'll give you a real world example. I know of a place in the city where they were doing 50% debt to equity. What does that mean? That means $2 million shopping center. My client puts up $1 million cash and we finance the other $1 million. Logical, right? Pretty easy number, 50% debt to equity. At that number, you should get financed, no problem. At the closing table, or close to the closing table, the finance people pulled out because there was not a triple rated tenant in the building. In other words, I didn't have State Farm, I didn't have something. These were all no-name, non-brand systems. They wouldn't finance a building that did not have a national brand at a high capacity. So we ended up buying the shopping center cash. That took you risk. Instead of having two on two different parts of town, you now have all your money in one basket. That's not a good move for you. So if you could come up with something where you're financing it on your own, and some of the stuff on Mount Zion sold for like $150 million. Pocket money, right? No. Shopping center across the street just sold $1.8 million. Pocket money again, right? No. Right? that's too much for your local place. You're not putting your business in there and spending $1.8 million. You know, $500,000, that's probably doable, right? You know, you come in and just like you buy a house, maybe you put down 20%, put $100,000 down in cash and finance the rest. And Ms. Claire, I think you can say financing $400,000 at a decent interest rate, 10-year note or something like that is comparable to your rent. Fair. So is that something that you guys could see happening? How would you add to that conversation, and what would you also consider to unlock value in this city? Ms. Renee?
I think if I'm understanding and if I follow that thought process, I think it again would be, you know, the city acknowledging where we want to go, what we feel is important to provide some level of enticement or incentive if that's possible. We can't own everything that's already out there in the city to be for the easier, I guess, development route based on what you've described. We just have to find the tools that we have available to us to look attractive in a different way. Your point earlier, Tamara, about people are saying, I want X, Y, Z, but not willing to kind of back it up and understand the reality. There's a reality attached to what it is that you want. And I think us, you know, being clear as a city, various boards and the mayor and council, if we're very clear on what it is that we want, then let's take the time to develop those tools that we have access to so that we have that full capability to assist. It may not be that financing piece, but it'll be some form of economic incentive that sweetens the deal. If there are financing mechanisms that the city can provide as informational packets, you know, we have relationships with, you know, certain banks. You know, they still have to go through their own financing process, but providing as much information as possible based on what we are convinced that we want, so that we can have a realistic conversation with citizens and businesses as they kind of see the energy and the momentum building for us trying to go in a better direction. That would be my comment to that. Things that we can do, they would be, I guess they would be incentives. I know that there are times where Sylvia businesses really view our Marty and Sylvia as a great resource. The city opening itself up and being viewed as a resource to attract economic development. I mean, that's the most free thing that we can do. I mean, just being, you know, we say we're open for business, but being a city that encourages business and has a reputation of being a great resource for those who are interested. I think those are the low-hanging fruit, as we always like to talk about in my mind. Those are the low-hanging fruit pieces that we can evolve and have more control over development.
Mr. Muller?
Well, I lost my thought there. I don't think it's in the city's best interest to be owning real estate property. As a rule, there's some exceptions to that, of course. And population's growing, so people are gonna need space, you know, just because more people are looking for places to open up businesses and that sort of thing. So city needs to make it attractive as possible, but as far as existing buildings, if somebody comes in and wants to build a building and they've done marketing studies and they've decided that with a certain building and a certain location that you can be successful, you can't tell them, I don't think, you can't build that, you gotta take one of these existing spaces. But if he does his marketing studies and he said, I can't make a success there. And so if he's smart, he's gonna walk away from it, so he's gonna, you got to, you can't interfere with progress,
Ms. Clay?
Well, from the consumer behavior point of view, as a resident here, as business, I have relocated my business elsewhere because of what the consumer here attracts. Consumer behavior is hard to change their mind. So therefore, we have to heavily marketing our location. This is a great location, and that's how I wanted to start my business to begin with, because we're 15 minutes away from the airport, and people are willing to drive 15 minutes away to have something, that is substantial. And I think if we do simultaneously marketing, and we're not so rigid in rule and regulations at the moment, just to bring, the type of business that we want. I don't know much about the regulations and, the law of the city, but I think that if someone wants something besides dollar store or another nail salon, something that is we don't have, then I think we should somehow make it work, make it more attractive, incentive of free rent for a certain amount of time. And as I'm driving up and down the highway, I only see one bulletin board that comes up in Morrow, which is the mall, that we have about 10 stores. You know what I mean? That's something that we need to focus on. And I think the resident here have a set of mind of what they want. And I think in time it will change, because if they see, the growth in the city, then their behavior start to change.
Excellent. Ms. Dorothy?
Back to a point that Claire made a little while ago about having something that will bring people into the city, something to, she said entertainment like the AMC. At one time, we looked at, property that we have, what can we utilize that property as to, that would attract people from surrounding cities to come to, because no one else had it. And of course, that was zip line, that was, miniature golf and all of that for the formerly known OTM, the district, was things that were, we had interest, but there again, down the road, they had a more attractive package. So we need that one little hook, as they say, to get some buzz out there, let people know that we're here,
Yeah.
we're open, we're listening, and make us a deal. Back to your shopping centers and subdividing the properties. What would be the step one to
Well,
look into that as far as subdividing?
The first thing
shopping
is just to
centers?
have it as kind of a warm reception, right? So before we have our marketing group or our economic development group go out there and pitch it, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to make sure that we're at least responding to it, right?
Mhm.
So we can pitch it and watch it hit the wall pretty hard, and that's not gonna be very good for us. So the idea is, we want you to know that we think, and want the opinion on it, that it opens up value.
Mhm.
John's gonna invest in John's stuff, might not invest in somebody else's. It's something we can do that doesn't cost us a lot of money. It just requires a little bit of effort. And it's not even super simple. Because when you subdivide a piece of property, you have one survey and one building. Now you're gonna end up with two separate surveys, which means they're gonna have to put a survey team out there, they're gonna have to talk about it. We don't have as many challenges because of some of the zoning that we have that some places might have, but an example on retail is generally considered a 5-to-1 parking ratio. Your city's code doesn't enforce a parking ratio of 5-to-1 anymore. But you don't want a scenario where you go out there and give John a building with no parking because, you know, I'm gonna go park on Qua's property because Qua's not gonna stop. Well, legally he might stop, but you wanna use a little common sense. But it's more of a, have a discussion about it. It is, we got lots of big spaces. How do we make them a little bit smaller? And we know that we've done that on a larger level, but not on a smaller level. So the first thing is, we shop it. When we see somebody that's got a Marshalls, where we know somebody's gonna invest $2 million, and at some point he's gonna reach a conclusion, I'm not gonna spend that kind of money on your property. And say, well, would the owner sell it? And would you buy it? We're not, we don't have an interest in it, right? We're not the broker on either side. We're just gonna pitch it. And the first answer they're gonna say is, I don't think your city's gonna allow you to do it. Well, if you went through the process, you know, we know that it's gonna take 6 weeks to get to the planning and zoning board. It's gonna take another 4 weeks to get to the city council. We're gonna ask you for everything under the sun, right? Survey after survey after survey. And you're gonna sit there and go, now you spent $5,000, and that's assuming the attorney didn't make the presentation to you, because that's gonna be another $3,000. You spent $10,000 for a number you don't even know is gonna work. No, you're not. These people won't pay $3,000 for a sign, you know?
So do you have a feel, or have you had any conversation as to the property owners, how they, is that?
I would think USA
They're
Property
interested?
Group would be willing, because they've come before the
They
council
have.
to
An
subdivide
example
property.
there would have been the old Sears outlet. I'd love to pull that one out from under,
And
because I
we
think that's a
did
pretty good
one more
number.
recently.
The Sears location, or the Macy's
Sears, but then
location.
there was another subdivided, I think that might have been in our second year on council.
The LA Bentley? What did
It
we
was
subdivide
over,
over
I
there?
think it was something that was in
Did
that
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Mhm.
But,
And the AT&T building as well.
but those are still parcels within parcels where you could get a visual. But what if you subdivided a building?
The
Just
strip,
use the
yeah.
Marsh of
Yeah,
South
the
Beach Center as an
strip, yeah.
example, is to say, you know, not an easy thing, even for them, because let's say the roof is all conducive. You know, there's gonna be lots of things behind it, like a condo association,
structure.
right? So it's not perfect. Another example, is, and we'll use one that's live, all right? So y'all know that the Social Security Administration building is moving, right? They had that silver LEED certified building. It's too small for them, and they're going into the old Valleys location, which sat vacant for a decade, right? They got chain link fence around it today, so we know for sure.
Where?
Over
Valleys.
there by America's Best. In
It
that
used to be a-
plaza by the
Used to be
mall.
a fitness center on Park Place.
We'll make sure you know where.
Yeah. But then you got Beauty Master, which picked up the old Service Merchandise location, right? So they are looking at, it's a very profitable location for them, maybe expanding their building. Well, when you look at it, you know, there's some thought process as to what that was gonna be, and you're like, man, you've got a sea of asphalt out there. Why wouldn't you just build onto the back of the building that you don't even use? Go right up to the property line. Who would care? Who would even know? Well, we'd know, but that would be something that he would have to ask for, because he'd have to say, give me a conditional use to be able to build up to your property line to make it financially successful for me to be able to do that. That's gonna come right before your planning and zoning board if they actually do that. Should you? I hope so. But technically, it's against your rules. And you'd say, but it's a good investment. Additionally, there's also a lot of parking lot in the front. I'm gonna paraphrase this because I don't know the truthfulness of it, but my understanding was there was a national brand,
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme, now that we know the answer. Krispy Kreme wanted to locate in his parking lot, and the city told him no.
Different players.
Yeah.
You gotta sit there and go, I'd help you build a Krispy Kreme myself, if you'd been putting it in the middle there. So,
Especially since the one on top burned out.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a surprise when we had that conversation. And you're like, I'd love to have a Krispy Kreme back, and he's gonna actually try, right? But again, that would require us to sit there and go, would you mind if I put a Krispy Kreme on the corner? No. You know, but I hope you guys would agree, because that's a whole bunch of this asphalt that is sitting out there that we can add more value to. That doesn't cost us anything. That's being a little bit more creative. Maybe it's just a ground lease of a pad site or something like that. But you have to know, it's technically against your code. So if I'm running up a $10,000 fee just to come and talk to you, that's a barrier to entry. I can go down the street, I don't have that problem, theoretically. Now, if you're in Decatur or DeKalb or something like that, you got bigger problems than we have, right? So a lot of things, and for those of you who don't know, you don't have an impact fee for restaurants here yet. If you're in Cobb, DeKalb, you pay like a $230-some per seat impact fee to the water authority just for the right to do it. So you're gonna fork over $20,000 to $30,000 just for the thought process before you do it.
300 something.
Yeah, it's a lot, okay.
You like it.
But we're not there yet, because we have a lot of water, the water authority stuff is working pretty well for us. And at some point, you're right, they will, but it's not because it's free money and somebody can take it. But while we can still build them with a lesser cost than somebody else, we should do that. But that's a live example, an expanded building, maybe, something out in the middle of their parking lot for a real play. And if you haven't had a chance to meet the gentleman, I know our DMO is live and he's on the board, and you're welcome to meet, and Val can give you the number with him as well. But let's keep going, and then we'll end this. Ms. McDonough.
Well, I'm just sitting here listening right now to all the different ideas. As I sit here, I'm thinking about what my neighbors and I would love to see. But I'm also thinking about the expressway and the business that we could get off the expressway. So as long as people knew something was here before they got here. Because we have so many people out there that they're traveling, they may need whatever item. I know I had a hard time, for instance, looking for a connector for my cell phone, a charger, when I was traveling here a while back. And just little things like that. It's all twirling through my mind, like we don't have, I don't know if you need to survey the people that live here, or if you know of a big business that would like to come in here. What is the big
One of the things
holdup?
that we have done, just to answer that question, is, there's hunting and being hunted, okay, in the real estate world. So hunting basically means that we're going out and we're searching for something, right? But if you don't know what you're hunting, you can't find it. So there is software out there that tells us all of the different companies as well as their contact data, and they give you a little bit of a synopsis as to what they're looking for. So you could go into, say, Gucci or Louis Vuitton, and they probably say, I'm looking for demographics where everybody's $150,000 income, and I want 300,000 people in 5 square miles. Okay, we don't meet that criteria. I am, a Zaxby's. I'm all over it, right? But you got one down the street, sorry, you can't have one. That software is available to us. Then you've noticed that we put the signs out on the properties we own. If you're not listing your properties either for lease, for sale, for negotiation, then how do you know that they're gonna come? Some people go on the internet, but a lot of folks in the real estate world, especially commercial real estate, they drive it. It's not enough to tell me what they wanna see, they want to drive it. So when they locate their store there, they're comfortable, they're gonna sit around there, they're gonna look at lunch, they're gonna look at dinner, they're gonna look at the driving side of the way home, the breakfast side or the coming home side. Coming home side might be the dry cleaner. Going to work side's gonna be the coffee shop, fair? So we now have those. Haven't had them very long, but we have them. And if you know somebody else that you like, we have no problem going and finding them. An example, and this is what some of the ideas of the tours are, is put them on a road and say, I'm looking for a coffee shop with a bakery, or I'm looking for a small brew pub. Go find me one. Find me one you like. Then we'll go and negotiate with them. It's easier to pick something like that. But again, you have to have a warm body here to be able to make those type of discussions. We have to give them good direction, right? Just being busy is not being productive, not the same thing. Right? So, yes, and we're working on it, and we've had some success, but if I told you every discussion that we had, at some point, you're gonna think that we're lying, right? It's always constant press, like, oh, great things are coming, oh, great things are coming. What you wanna know is, what did we land? what are the terms, right? So the 10 people that we talked to that told you no, that's just an effort. You gotta put that effort in. What you wanna know is what can we pull off? That takes a little more time, right? For every 10 you're gonna see, one's gonna have a real conversation with you. You might have to go through 100 people. And it's not just us, it's everybody that's in the brokerage world, gonna be in the same boat. And everybody who wants to be here doesn't necessarily have the resources to be here. So good comment. Ms. Cameron?
Yeah, no, I love I think we literally need to think outside the box and, the same rules, I don't think are working today, and it takes, courage, it takes a lot of work to make exceptions and think creatively. But I really think that, we as a city, that's what we need. The same rules don't apply anymore, so we're gonna have to have leadership that's, willing to take, the criticism for thinking outside of the box and those sorts of things in order for us to move forward. So I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Clark?
Back to your point that subdividing, subdividing properties, those kind of things, I agree to those. As a government entity, I think we should do everything we can to have the private sector to bring, to do whatever they can do, what they should do to be success in our city. Another thing is we have a lot of, not too many left, but we still have a lot of vacant shopping out there. And back to the point that you shop for those restaurants or those retail. I'm a big retail guy. We don't have to travel to Midtown or other side of town to go to the place that we want. We take our time to. We have a team in place, so we're gonna direct them to shop for those kind of restaurants or retail that we want. And it takes us a little time and a lot of effort, Sylvia and, the whole city staff been working very hard to meet. And mostly the mayor, his schedule on Tuesday, from morning to dark to meet everybody that I could to try to locate them to the city. So hopefully in the near future we're gonna see some thing happening soon.
Ms. Van?
Yeah, I'm good with what we can do as the government with our authority to help to attract business to locate here. I'm good with that. And I will support that.
All right, now, our time's up, and we want you to like this meeting, and we want you to come back when we have another one, and we don't want to wait a year to do it. There are some things, and this is where if we inadvertently, and I'm going to use that word correctly, if you just missed, if you didn't get the memo, somebody didn't do anything, we had an idea and we moved with it, somehow or another you didn't get in there. It wasn't because we don't like you, right? It happens, right? So some way along the lines we got to keep everybody informed because there are some moving parts. And examples would be when you talk about the marketing, for an example. Tuesday night, a couple weeks ago, we approved 2 digital signs off the exit to that. Do you have what those look like? That's correct, right? Okay. So years ago, we had the 2 entrance signs to the city. Remember the little rock-colored ones? We took them up because there was some construction going on. One broke, got damaged, whatever, it's gone. The other one is still exists. But the question is, was that really, what the city needed today? Good question. Kind of static. Right now we've got to promote our business community, our existing business community, because we got to eat, and that's just a fact. But Bao has, I hope, the visual on that. And Bao, unfortunately, is a technology guy, so he probably doesn't have any print. And you didn't know I was gonna ask the question, so.
We'll email it to you.
We'll email it to you. But each side of this, it's a fairly substantial sign. And if you remember the digital sign that's over at Harley Davidson, for example, it's that quality. And we're gonna spend about 50 grand on each side. Obviously, the sign market's Morrow, but our business community is gonna have access to that sign so that they can scroll their businesses as well. And that means whether you're on the coming home side or the other side, you don't all have to scroll the same thing. And we're gonna allow our first 25 businesses that were involved with our business association as first run. Now, at some point, you can do low cost. You don't have to do free all the time, but that's one option. And right now, we gotta do something. We've had some discussions, we own some property in Skylark with a billboard counter. And it meets the criteria for the state of Georgia of 1,500 feet apart from the other one. And we also have some other billboards and some other property we own. Those are mostly static, right? But the idea is I don't necessarily want a lease rate from you. I want time on the billboard. So it scrolls 8 per minute, I think is my understanding. 6. My understanding is not very good. But whatever the number is we want 2, 1, whatever that is, instead of that, so that we can promote a local business. And that would allow you to basically say, shop here, right? Because you're right, we put up a billboard, even though I don't want to say we own it, but we have some control over it, and all we're doing is telling you to go to Tanger Outlet, which is terrible, when we should be telling you to shop here. And we know we have one, and it's a challenge because there's some rules on it, right? So we talk about eat, shop, stay. Okay, you know, we gotta do better than that. You know, we gotta promote what we have going on right here. Now, on that particular one, there was some things that would have been required, right? One of them was the property is 100% owned by the city. It's currently zoned residential. We wanted to create a strip and zone it commercial. For those of you who have done this for a while, usually anything that's adjacent to a commercial piece can be zoned normally. The streets don't count, right? So on the other side of I-75 is basically South Lake Mall, commercial. On this property, we also get a small stipend for a cell tower that's on our property from years ago. So it's a cash revenue. It's called passive income. You sit there and somebody sends you a check. Nice thing to do if you can do it, right? But, so we do a little strip, doesn't change much. I think they did a balloon test on it the other day, and they think there's a tree in the way. Okay, you know, we'll figure it out. But that would allow you an opportunity to market your city even more, whether that's your event space where you might have something going on there, or whether it's your local businesses, or different things like that. So it's creative. It's not something, we're not spending $500,000 to go buy a billboard, right? We're basically saying that's not our core competency. We want to use the people who do, you know, but on the other hand, we're not willing to open up 54 Highway and Mount Zion and all these others to just billboards like crazy, so we just look like everybody else. But I-75 is pretty much a corridor that people drive up and down, and they need to know you have real life here, real businesses here. And we've not done as well in that. We've been very restrictive, as a matter of fact. And we own the vast majority of the land on I-75 from a linear footage. That's a fact. So anything that we can do and anything that you can think of is there. Additionally, there's some properties the city owns. Not only did we put the signs up in them, but we have engaged an architect to start to give you some visuals, right? Whether that's the dark space at South Lake Mall, whether that's the stuff up by the university, some of the cool stuff that we have the potential to do at the Reynolds Road property, which is more community related versus some other things, maybe an art district or something, or Dorothy's Wonderful Garden, which hopefully will be open soon. Billy, if it doesn't open soon, it's your fault. So, you know, it takes a minute, and our engineer here will explain this as well, is first you have a vision, then you have to be able to figure out if you can build it, then you have to figure out if you can pay for it, and we'd certainly like somebody else to pay for it before we have to pay for it. So there's a series of things that are going to be visuals that we're going to have so that Val can actually give them to somebody to market, right? It's one thing to say to market, but what are you marketing, right? You got to show them something that makes sense and something that you would agree with. Okay, so you're going to see some of those coming forward soon, and we don't want you to miss them, right? So you know everybody that we know, right? You've got their emails, we've got our emails, and we want to stay in touch. We also want you to do these tours, because this is just the beginning. If we only fish with one pole, we have no idea what's biting, right? And other communities do this stuff every day. And there's no reason we shouldn't as well. As to whether we have to own it, good question. But what I don't take is, because the private sector won't locate here at the quality that we want, then I'm just doomed to my fate. I disagree. I would look at it and say, that's what an incentive does. An incentive says, I can do something you can't, and I'll give you a reason. I'll give you an example. You take a piece of property and you own it as a development authority, or you own it as a city of Morrow. Your property tax is zero, fair? That's true, it's zero. Right? But if that guy's building that building, let's say he makes a $3.5 million investment, $1 million worth of land, $4 or $5 million investment, he's probably gonna pay roughly $100,000 a year, give or take, maybe a little more, in property tax. Total, school board, county, us. What are they making today? Not much, right? Minimum. So they make the investment. You can apply that investment back into the game. That's your money. They weren't making it without it. That is one of the tools that's in the URA's toolbox. It's in the city's toolbox. That one matters. Now that's ground up construction kind of stuff, right? So there are reasons for you to be able to do things. Now, should you just go crazy? Not a good idea. Yeah. And if you're gonna get into a mess, and we've had discussions with Lana about this as well, but let's say that politically y'all change your minds. Right? Today we have this great idea. We buy realms, right? Or we do whatever. Right? And tomorrow, politically, we change our minds. Don't like it. You don't get to destroy it. You don't get to flush it down the drain and lose millions of dollars. Sorry, that's just not how it works. If you got into it, then you change your strategy, you hire bright people, and you exit the strategy under terms that are agreeable to your financial picture, just like your pocketbook. You don't sell your house for $5. You don't not like your house and you knock all the windows out. Sorry, that's not happening. Right? All you're doing is destroying value there, and it's negligence. We don't allow other people to do it, and we're darn sure not gonna do it either. Right? So the properties we do own, we're gonna maintain. We're gonna come up with an exit strategy that makes sense, right? Is it gonna be everybody making everybody happy? Probably not, you know? But remember, we're a democracy. We rule by consensus. We have to get votes. Somebody has to agree, or it doesn't happen, right? So we do appreciate you coming out tonight. I'll open the floor to any other comments. Ms. Reddick?
Just remember that the planning and zoning board will have to adjourn.
Yes. And then I think right after the city council meeting, we're gonna have a reception too, right? So why don't we
Yes.
stay for that? And I promise you, this city council meeting will be enticing. It'll be something you wanna stay for. I'm kidding, you have to start somebody on fire.
Can I say something?
Yes, by all means.
You know, meanwhile, just good news is, I mean, we listed the boards out there for lease sign, but we also
That's
put
the
a-
picture of the sign, by the way. You
Yeah,
finally got it up on the
that's
screen.
the sign. We also put on CoStar, and there's a retail lease track. That's the tool that I'm using to be able to reach out to like Starbucks and stuff like that. So rather than waiting on them to reach out to us, we're reaching out to the right players, because retail lease track allow us to get the right contacts for the people that, you know, make decisions for these big companies. And also, just some good news that we have already in our city, like Phantom Fireworks is the #1 in the region for Phantom Fireworks. Namde Moon is the #2 out of 8 stores in Georgia. So we have good stuff. American Freight, #1 in the region in Morrow. Beauty Master, #1 out of 7 in Georgia. They gross like almost $10 million versus their Gwinnett store, which is much larger than us, and they're probably doing like maybe 150 grand a month. We did 800 grand last month. So State Farm, #1 in the nation that we have in Morrow. So, and then Toys R Us is the guy who's moving from Forest Park to Morrow. We struggled with that property, like maintenance, and he finally took it over and he's moving his business from Forest Park here, and he's doing heavy numbers, so.
And
A lot of good
what's the
things.
place that's opening up on Friday, ribbon cutting, Savoy?
Savoy's grand opening. So lately, we've been trying to, doing ribbon cutting for a lot of the businesses, so that helps show them that we're here for them. We did Savoy, we did Lowe's outlet recently, and then, Escobar just hit their 1-year anniversary. So a lot of good stuff is happening tomorrow. So I don't want us to, lose. I mean, they're doing really good. So.
To his point. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because there was something that was growing in my mind that I wanted to share. We're talking about marketing the city, and all of the contacts, the resources and contacts that are available to us now so that we can market out. one thing that I think we should remember, and we've had this conversation at a previous council meeting, the meaning of the demographic data. The demographic data for our area, it looks a certain way, but the spending habits of residents in the county, we have to express that, because the demographic data with regard to median household income and different things like that, those are the things on paper that may not make us look as attractive. But as we had a conversation about the psychographic data in terms of Clayton County's residents, our spending habits, what do we desire to use our money for? That's how we get a beauty master that's #1 in the state. That's how we get, you know, the insurance companies that for the region. We have a lot of retail spaces that are #1 in their organization because of our residents' spending habits. Our demographic data isn't gonna look as attractive, but it's gonna be our responsibility as a city to make sure that even though we've provided that demographic data that looks a certain way on a piece of paper, we explain that for our region, we're such a hub that we create those #1 slot in the company opportunities, those #2 slot opportunities for companies because of our location. We have residents that have spending habits that are beyond what is quantified on the paper.
Any closing statements, Mr. Mullen?
My only comment is, like you said at the very beginning, this is not the ideal format for this kind of a discussion. You know, everybody's sitting around a table where you can interact.
Well, we thought about using the conference center, but things were going on, so this is kind of where we ended up. We'll fix that. And right now, our community room is used for vaccines, which is pretty important to us, so, you know, we'll, in due time, I agree. Ms. Claire?
I just want to make one last comment. Since 2020, I see a lot of little changes in the city, like the road, new pavement and everything, and I think that's wonderful. Also, we, as a landscape-wise, I think we should do something at the exit where it says, this is Morrow. You know what I mean? Right now, we only have a sign that says, Morrow, Jonesboro Road. You know, if we were gonna go all out, or we're gonna market in Morrow, and we want business to come in, they'll be able to see aesthetically, and I think that's very important, that was the entrance and the exit, where it states that this is Morrow, and not Morrow and Jonesboro Road, you know what I mean?
Totally agree. Hopefully that sign is gonna be up there in 30 days or 60 days.
One day,
Awesome.
see, we are gonna put the.
But we at least got the interstate lights on, so that part's good. Ms. Dorothy?
Yes, I think there were quite a few ideas that, you know, we definitely need to discuss and, as you say, tour, look into the properties and see what is happening around other cities and see what we can initiate here in the city, you know, be it the subdivision of the shopping centers or something that will attract people to come into the city, some amusement or entertainment or something like that. So I'm for bringing in the foot traffic and the vehicle traffic.
Sweet. Ms. McDonald?
Oh, I'm just, there's so much going through my mind now that I really enjoyed this meeting. I'm really happy to be here. I'm learning a lot just the short time that we've been here, so I thank you for asking.
Ms. Tamara?
Yeah, I'll just, let's all just continue to support our city leadership and our city staff. They're doing a great job, and let's do our part to help market and promote the city of Morrow.
Mr. Clark?
I'm glad to meet everybody today, and it's gonna take a team effort to be a success team. So excited to work. Looking forward to work with you guys as a team to help the city move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Van?
Thank you for every member of planning and zoning board for the meeting tonight, and I'm looking forward to working with you to co-activate in the right direction. Thank you.
Excellent. The city council is going to take a brief recess so we can get a cup of coffee, and I believe the planning and zoning board needs to convene and adjourn.
So,
Planning and zoning board meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Work session will start, and as stated earlier, once we go into the council meeting, get the council meeting over with, we'll go into a reception, and we will not reconvene after that. Review of the meeting agenda. Obviously, the first part with the planning and zoning board, which I thought went well. It'll go better once we're kind of all around a room where we can talk to each other. Then it doesn't look quite like this. I think you'll feel better when we have those discussions. So the first one is there any issues with the February 9th regular meeting minutes or the work session minutes? Yes. No? Ms. Gordon? Okay.
No, he's.
Ms. Van, are you good with the minutes?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. Going over was there something we talked about today that we were adding on something?
Well, if it's not gonna work out for our recommendation to add it, we'll just wait for the next meeting.
Okay.
We can put it on the discussion, but it won't be something we're asking you to add to the agenda.
That we're not gonna follow that.
Right,
Keep it
that's
short.
right.
Okay. So the first one, authorize the fire department to submit the assistance to the firefighters grant, and that's the one I believe they were talking about the last time, right? Residential key boxes. So the amount, the city's match is $1,370, and $27,000 is what we get for that. So there's a certain number they would have. You want to reiterate what you said last time, Chief?
Sure. This is the idea of this last meeting, and I've got pricing now, so as the mayor just said, it's the city's match will be $1,377, which is a 5% match. And that's for 60, we pay for 60 of the key boxes, and they give us 10 at no charge.
Excellent, like that. Any discussions on that, Ms. Knight?
No.
Ms. Dean?
No.
Mr. Qualcomm? Ms. Tran?
No question.
Okay. To approve the invoice for Atlanta Pyrotechnics, they've done basically the fireworks for the 4th of July, our event every year for about the same price for almost 15 years now, almost the same number, right? So that's John Zechek and his group. And our Freedom Fest is going to be on June 26th, the Saturday before July 4th. Any issues with the fireworks display, Ms. Knight?
No.
Ms. Doyle?
No.
Ms. Quah? Ms. Tran?
I'm just curious, what we have been using the existing vendor for 15 years. What is the urge or the need of changing the vendor?
I didn't catch that last part. What's the what?
Can you say that again, man?
Same vendor that provide the fireworks?
Well, mostly because he's consistent and it's a good price. And it's been the same price for 15 years. That's not a bad price.
And they work with us when we've had rain dates too.
Does that answer the question, Ben?
I was asking if this is the same vendor.
Yes, it is.
We always use.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Atlanta Pyrotechnics,
Thank you.
at least 15 years, maybe 20.
Since I've been here.
Yeah, and the reason they like us is because we generally don't do it on July 4th, which is a good day for them, and it allows us to have 2 holidays. Okay, so all good. To approve the Public Works recommendation for the renovation of the greenhouse, not to be considered greenhouse, i.e. garden, but greenhouse basically being the district. And just like the red property, for those who are watching that, we now have windows back in that building, and we've got it generically painted. We're still in work in progress, so these numbers are pretty good. And again, all we're saying is, we can't market a building that's all destroyed like that. So we've got to put some basic maintenance back into it, and then work with the companies. most of, well, I think I said this with certainty, every opportunity that we've talked about on those two buildings so far has been minority vendors, correct?
I'm going through his mind. I think that is correct.
And almost all of them are either Hispanic or African American, right? So, for those who have that as where are you headed, who's got an interest in responding? Right?
And just the motion will designate SPOS 2014 for that,
Got it. All right, and did we?
if you so choose.
It's the logical. Okay, so the new one, and I'm assuming there's supporting documents to go with that. It's weird to see it.
And Billy's here if you want him to explain anything.
No, I'm just, do we have the proposals in our?
Yeah, they're all with him, with their certificates
It'd be
of
helpful if I actually got the
insurance.
package, right?
And
Okay.
then Billy has a summary.
Okay. All right, so what we're seeing there is we got 4 bids this time, right?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what we did was we actually created a scope of services of all the work that needs to be done for the greenhouse. The greenhouse is a little bit smaller than the red house. We put the scopes out, they came back. They were very, very competitive, almost down to a difference of $2,600 difference between two contractors. We did do our homework to check to see the quality and quantity of work that the contractors have been doing. This contractor has a combination of experience with pavement, concrete, as well as commercial and residential dwellings. So we feel very comfortable and confident that he's going to give us a good end result when it's all said and done.
Sweet. Okay. So the recommendation on this one is All His Enterprises LLC for the amount of $45,500.
Yes, we do.
Discussions, Ms. Knight. Ms. Dean. Mr. Quas. Ms. Tran.
Question.
All right. Keep going. To approve the Public Works Department recommendation for the repair of the potholes at Clayton State Boulevard, North Lake Drive by barn striping in the amount of $14,850. Go ahead.
Yeah, what happened was, over near Clayton State University, there's a route that, based on observation, it's a Morrow route. At Clayton State North Lake Drive is a pothole that is steadily getting bigger and bigger. And it's to the point that I'm afraid that someone's gonna drive through the pothole and we're gonna end up with a large bill to make the repairs to the vehicle as a result of the pothole. Clearly, and as I mentioned to the city manager, my concern is it's a MARTA stop, which means that you're gonna have to do a little bit more reinforcement of the asphalt and beneath the ground there to accommodate the weight of the bus. But nevertheless,
We're gonna fix it, we're gonna be fixing it again, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes, sir.
And what is not reflected in the motion, but I would like to recommend considering is that this actually gets paid from one of your SPOS years too. I mean, typically we'd not come before the council with a filling in a pothole, but because this is such a large amount of money, I just wanted you to be aware of it. And of course, if it's gonna be a SPOS expenditure, you all would have to vote on that. So,
2014.
yes, sir.
Because we didn't give them a lot of street repair money in the budget.
Exactly.
Right.
And we're feeling the squeak.
All right, and then the recommendation here is barn striping. Questions, Ms. Knight?
No question.
Ms. Knight?
I do have a question. This is on the, if you're going down, what is that, North Lake Drive?
So if you were to,
It's on the left-hand side, next to the dorms, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I might be the devil's advocate here. There's a little corner there on the right-hand side, where there's a big, another,
All right, so if you're on Jonesboro Road, you make a left onto Clayton State Boulevard. The first stop that you come to is North Lake Parkway,
yeah,
or North Lake Drive and Clayton State Boulevard.
right. I know,
It's right there in the corner.
I know the area, but I'm saying over here, on this side, there's another, right at the corner, both, Station, University Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
And the street, right on the corner, there's another really deep into the curb hole on,
I'd have to go out and put
Yeah.
my eyes on that one.
yeah.
This one caught my attention, and basically two things happened. Clayton State University reached out to us
Yeah.
and
okay.
started to give us
Okay.
some feedback and saying, hey, it's worsening. But I will go out tomorrow. and check
Well,
that
but,
out.
so, because I would imagine that to have both done at the same time, we could experience some cost savings if they're already out there?
That is correct, but again, when I went out to look at this one, I did not see a second one. But if you're saying there's a second one that's starting to develop, I will go back out and have a
It's
secondary
as if
conversation.
it's trucks or buses, I think it's the buses that are hitting, jumping the curb there. And it's in that area right next to the curb, so,
Is it going into Clayton State or is it
no,
on North Lake
it's
Drive?
going down Lake Drive, going towards, Harper, I think it is. It's on the side where
We'll
the
check,
train,
we'll check.
railroad.
Yeah, I'll
tracks
check it
are,
out first
so-
thing in the morning.
It'd be nice if they used that approved bus stop nearby.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I get that one. Right. Any other questions, Mr. Quam? Ms. Tran? Van, you got any questions on item 4? Okay. Item 5, approval of agreement with the Atlanta Wedding Band in the amount of $3,570, and this is related to
St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's Day, and it's gonna be paid out of hotel motel tax, I believe, correct?
We expect and hopefully assume that yes, that's. it's
That's
going
the
to be
correct
yes.
answer, that's
Yes.
right, that's the legal answer. So, any questions with that, Ms. Knight,
No.
Ms. Dorothy?
Not 5, Arizona Road, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Quam?
No, listen.
Ms. Tran? Hearing none. Item 6 is dealing with Cap Truck ATL, and that's basically an agreement where if they don't make a certain number of sales, you know, that it's basically something that we make up the difference for, which is pretty traditional and things like that. And you got the contract that goes with it. Any questions? And I assume that that has the same formality that goes with it. Maybe it's paid for by somebody else.
Well, we hope that the successful celebration pays for it.
Oh, that's
Yes,
even a
but-
better answer.
yeah.
Barring that, we would.
Yeah, but to be clear, the fireworks cannot be reimbursed.
That's correct. This is the
But
Cap
yes,
Truck.
all event-related expenses, our expectation would be that now our DMO is in place, we can have those opportunities to reimburse the general
So
fund.
these would be things that we have a budget for, and ultimately they would take forward once we get them, you know, up to speed, which is coming soon. Okay, Ms. Knight?
So, I guess the quick question, what is the mechanism for us to know whether they need $800 or not?
It's the total gross sales.
Yeah, they'll have a cash register and they have to show us their
No,
sales.
I get it, but I guess in my mind, we're trusting that they're gonna
Yeah,
provide.
yeah, at some point. And, you know, their sale requirement is only $800. If it was much larger than that, we would probably look for a different answer and how to confirm their sales is what she
And
said.
years ago, we leased one of these trucks ourselves, and the cost is much higher than that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's better to have somebody who does it further than reduce our risk. Ms. Dorothy?
I don't think we'll have a problem.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a problem on that day, but just wanting to ask the question.
Good question. Mr. Clark?
No problem.
Ms. Tran? Okay, barring none. I believe the proclamation is going to be read at the other event. Is that correct, Ms. Dorothy?
At
the end of this one.
At the end, well, at the end of this one, like the end of this one? Okay.
So we'll just,
All right, we'll make that work.
you have 6 minutes, you can't start your meeting early.
No, we still have other things.
Yeah, I'm just reminding you.
A couple things, we know we have a grand opening, which we talked about earlier with Savoy at Friday, and then we've got a Black History Month social, which is following this, right, for those, I assume most of you are here for that. And then
Mayor
additionally-
Lample and Chief Moss, Deputy Chief Moss was asking to go first for the COVID, so he can leave after the vaccines. He was gonna update us on the vaccine.
Absolutely. What was the other event that we had? That we have another event?
This Sunday is the Black History Month concert at the Morrow Center. Doors open at 5, concert starts at 6. And of course, this Saturday is the Vietnam War Memorial dedication that begins at 11 right here at City Hall. Of course,
So
everyone is
It's a
invited.
pretty phenomenal little memorial. You would want to check that out. And then what's the name of the band that's playing on Friday or Saturday, Sunday?
Sunday is Soul Cartel. Soul Cartel.
So
That's what I
you
say.
can look them up. They've got some good stuff for you to listen to. Now, Mr. Moss.
Take my mask off for a minute, it's easier for me to talk that way. So, good evening, Mayor and Council, thanks for having me. Sorry, but I have to get back to the house here pretty quickly. But in a vaccine update, they're going very well. Today, we gave our 208th shot today. I have 100 in stock right now. We have 40 scheduled. I'm getting ready to ask more slots for Thursday, and that'll give us 40 more that we'll do. We're expecting delivery of 300 tomorrow. Is where we are with those. One of the bigger updates is the scheduling issue, and so if the word can get out to not just those in here, but anybody you know that have scheduled, the one thing we run into is when people have an appointment scheduled and they don't cancel that appointment. There are very strict guidelines on the vaccine. So once we begin to pull from a vial for the vaccine, we cannot refreeze, we cannot put anything away and reuse that vial. So we're left holding on to doses that someone had scheduled for and doesn't show. And unfortunately, we go down a list and we have wait lists and we call those wait lists, we try to get them in and bring those people in, and we have not had to waste any so far. Thank goodness. We have not had to waste any, but at the end of the day, if somebody hasn't shown up and I can't find someone on a wait list, and we may have to waste that, and we don't want to do that. And so far we've given every dose that has been pulled. So that's the good news, is that we're doing that. But it helps us tremendously. Our process it goes very smooth as long as everybody shows up with their appointment time. That helps us out tremendously. Everything rolls through and we get all the vaccine where it's supposed to be, and that works very smoothly when we do that. And we've got our process going very well right now. The delivery of the delivery of the vaccine seems to be picking up. So I think we're going to be fine for all of our appointments that we have. Second doses will start next week. So those who are a very first set of folks that came through will start getting their second shots next week, and then we'll continue with first doses as well. So our numbers pick up pretty significantly next week.
And I think too, for anyone who passes on the information about the registration, or that is on that list, that sort of, if you did, in emergency contact, remind them to answer their phones on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Between what hours?
9 to 11. We've been going till 12. Went till almost 1 today because of the lull we have while we wait on people from the wait list to answer and to advise that they're going to come in as we're searching for the folks to get the vaccine to. So once the wait list piece begins, we usually end up in a little bit of a lull waiting on them to come in. So today we were almost 1 o'clock before we finished today. But 9 till 11, 11:30 is where I usually make that cutoff, is where I schedule people. And we're probably going to add a slot back at about 9:30 as we continue on.
I heard the vaccine companies basically got the 10 shots in one vial, and they've asked to be able to put 14 doses in one to speed up the process. Do we know when that gets implemented so that you have the change?
I haven't heard it. They give us updates twice a week. All the providers get an update twice a week. Pfizer generally gets 6 doses out of their 5 doses. We use Moderna, which is a 10 dose. We've had several vials that have gotten us 11. So some of the Modernas had a little bit extra in it, like the Pfizer's did. It's not a routine thing, but I have not seen an update on the expected date for them to start adding more doses. They have not put that out in the weekly yet. I'll get another one. I'll get another update Thursday or Friday and see if they add anything to expecting to up the doses on that. But the shipments, they're saying the shipments are coming. They're like it's coming. I know that Clayton State got a couple hundred doses today. We were expecting ours, but I got an email this morning that said we're delaying yours by a day, so we're expecting 300 tomorrow.
So then your schedule's about a month out, right? Total,
Yes.
Total booked, including waiting list, 30 days.
Yeah, right now we've scheduled through March the 16th for first doses, and I had to kind of stop it right there, not knowing exactly what the vaccine supply was going to be like, because the storms kind of slowed everything down. That put a damper on them, and I was getting messages from some other places that they weren't getting their second doses delivered, so I slowed down adding some people to make sure I had enough for second doses for that important piece right there. So as the chain picks back up, I'll begin to add some more pieces to the backside of that and plug those in.
I mean, it's available. It's obviously a public meeting, so we're not hiding anything. But as far as like massive, advertising of it hasn't taken place yet because they just don't have the capacity.
Right. In Clay County, the Department of Public Health is doing work down there. They have a mass vaccination site. I think once or twice a week that they're running theirs through. And then there's us, and there's a couple of clinics that are doing some things here and there, but the clinics at times seem to have a hard time getting their second doses. Our supply so far has kept up here.
Questions?
Are we still at 65 plus?
Oh, great question, thank you. Yes, we're still in Tier 1A plus, which is healthcare, fire, EMS, over 65, and caretakers of over 65.
Excellent. Ms. Tran, any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
This stuff, we don't know. I mean, live, we say.
Absolutely.
And they don't hurt.
That second dose is supposed to be a little.
That's because of our skilled folks that are giving the shots, right?
Awesome. Yes. Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You, for the first time, I don't know that we've had this before, but you've got a new business list.
Yes, if you remember at the last council meeting, we had some members of the council that asked for, when new businesses are open, that they're updated. So what we'll look to see is that the second meeting of every month, we'll just be giving you the next 30 days of businesses that are open. Yeah, don't be scaring me like that.
That's a pretty decent number.
You need to explain that.
And if anybody ever has questions about a new business, you're always welcome to email me or certainly Val. So I can call and ask them.
It looks like you've got a pretty good vid in here in terms of, parks and all kinds of things. Why don't you tell us what you got?
With regards to the parks?
This is your assessment that you sent.
Okay, so what we did was basically went out to all of the parks and actually put our eyes on the parks to get an idea of the equipment that we have in our parks as well as the overall condition of our parks. We found that a lot of the parks have equipment that need some repair, and there are some pieces that need to come out. We were very specific in identifying what we thought were the pieces of equipment that needed to come out. For example, swings. Some of our swings are pretty old and they're dated and they're not as safe as we would like for them to be, so we're recommending that we replace some of the swings. The borders around just about 80% of the parks, the borders around the playground areas are old railroad ties. They're starting to deteriorate. Most definitely we need to remove those and put those back in. And then the surface beneath the playground equipment is mostly sand. it's starting to show some signs of wear and tear as far as contamination as with grass and other vegetation starting to bleed through.
And he's got all the pictures and the supporting documents still at the back of his.
Yeah, so what we did was we took pictures.
Mayor, I have one,
Yes,
one
yes, ma'am.
question. On those, railroad ties, remember, if any of them can be recycled for our compost.
Oh my gosh, you're upset.
Just for the record, Ms. Dorothy does not believe in throwing anything away.
They can compost,
Yeah,
they
so,
help tear it down.
Ms. Dorothy, if they're salvageable,
Thank you.
we will hold on to them and stage them somewhere so that we
Thank you.
can use them elsewhere.
Yes.
But it's, for us, it's definitely, there's a few safety items that we need to address. And so what I did was pull together a detailed listing of locations and information and sent that to the city manager for review. And
Yeah, they have it.
yeah, it's roughly,
Right. So what we're looking at is about, this is a guesstimate, right? So we're basically a little under 100 grand, 87,480 something. We don't have to use all the same contractor to be able to get things moving forward. I'm assuming most of this would be some type of loss that we basically hired out. It's a lot.
Yeah, so a lot of it we'll be able to do ourselves. A lot of it, some of it we'll need to hire, but,
Or if
so.
we do it ourselves, then we can't use the splash.
No, we can use the SPOS to do it ourselves. What we couldn't do is hire we can't pay our staff.
Okay.
We can pay the expense of the equipment or the railroad ties or whatever, but we can't pay our payroll with staff.
Okay.
So what we would be asking for is at the next meeting, unless you all have comments or want to see additions, that we would ask for this as one approval for the 87, 48 out of SPOS 2014.
Right. This is mostly maintenance, right?
Yes, sir.
We're not going to, any equipment that's being changed out in a massive way, or you're just maintaining what you have?
we're maintaining as much of it as we possibly can, but there are several pieces of equipment, swing sets that need to be completely replaced, and I did make mention of those at the specific parts that we need to do that. But for the most part, it's a ton of maintenance. And that,
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. And that includes, what about lighting at the parks and different things like that?
we-
Separate issue?
That's.
It's totally separate.
Yeah, totally separate, but we're looking at that, we are looking at that because there are some lighting upgrades. Kind of like what we've done thus far with adding lights to poles. We seem to think that one or two of the parks could use some extra light to push away the bad element that could potentially come back to the park and do some destructive type.
And I know we just did some things where we had the security cameras, which are basically wireless, right?
Yes, sir.
And there was a discussion, and it wasn't like obscene noise, right? There was some discussions.
Yeah.
Flock of camera.
The flock cameras.
But they weren't crazy. You know, when you looked at the
Like,
numbers.
per camera, like
$2,500
a year, but there was a one-time charge of installing for 200.
Yes.
So if you wanted to go into another year, it would only be an additional 2,500. You wouldn't have to pay that 200 again.
Can we get some type of review from that and just some options? In some areas we might not want it.
Yes, in
some
fact, I
areas we
think
might.
that's what they're doing an assessment. Now, we feel like we need one at
Yes.
Old Town, the
The
district.
district, we, not to cut you short,
No.
City Manager, but one of the things that we feel would be beneficial is if we have flock of cameras, those cameras communicate with one another. So if someone were to do something stupid in our city, and they're driving through our city, the cameras are gonna actually communicate, and it's gonna help law enforcement to better track that person down. And/or if they leave the city and they're en route elsewhere, the flock of camera will do the same thing.
The idea of this is to prevent graffiti. There's somebody that we tagged, we actually caught him, chief, fire department, police department, good job. Somebody is going to be doing some community service here for a while.
In Morrow.
In Morrow, yeah. So they're gonna have regretted that decision. But these are just ways to get concrete proof to prosecute versus saying, we think you were over there or something like that. That's where you sit there and go, no, we got you. But that's a good assessment of something else that I think we need.
Yes, and
Not
we're
Big
hoping
Brother
that this will
watching
help
kind of
us
thing, but,
solve
smart.
the burnout problem at the dog park that, consistently haunts us.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact, since the cameras have gone in, we have not seen and/or heard of anyone else being out there doing burnouts thus far. So that's a bonus for us. So I think we're taking steps to put in security devices that are going to help us long-term, and will help prevent a lot of recurrences of bad stuff in our city.
So this right here is the first line of maintenance. There'll be some other things that we'll be asking for soon. Any questions? Ms. Tran?
No question.
Ms. Dean?
No questions.
Mr. Wall? Ms. Tran?
No question.
Barring that, I anticipate seeing that at the next council meeting, and we'll vote to approve, and we'll keep heading in the right direction. Let's see, most of this is just discussion items. We have a series of visuals that are in the process of being created from our architect that will help to be able to market properties in the city better and to give our community a little bit of a chance to kind of see what's happening.